June is the month that separates gardeners who pull long, smooth, deeply colored carrots from the ground from those who spend the rest of summer staring at a bed of twisted, hollow, bitter roots wondering what went wrong. And the cruelest part? Most of those gardeners did everything they were supposed to do. They prepared their beds. They watered consistently. They followed every tip they found online. They put in real effort and real time. But June has a set of rules that nobody tells you about. Rules that are completely different from March, different from April, different from May. And if you carry your spring habits into June without adjusting, your carrot bed will quietly punish you for it. Not loudly, not immediately, but slowly and invisibly until the damage is already done. I know this because I lived it. I had a bed of nonce carrots that looked perfectly healthy on the surface all the way through June. Green tops, no signs of disease. I thought I was winning. Then I pulled them in August. Forked roots, bitter flavor. Half of them had cracked straight down the middle. The soil was not the problem. The weather was not the problem. I was the problem. And today, I'm going to walk you through the 5 June-specific mistakes that are silently destroying carrot harvests, so you never have to pull up that kind of disappointment again. Here is what most carrot gardeners do in June. They water when it is convenient for them. After work, before dinner, late afternoon, when the day has cooled down slightly and it finally feels manageable to go outside and run the hose. It feels responsible. It feels like good stewardship. The soil looks dry. The sun is lower, and you're hydrating your plants before nightfall. Nothing about this feels wrong, but it is wrong, and the consequences will not show up for 2 weeks, which is exactly why most gardeners never connect the action to the damage. Here's what is actually happening underground when you water carrots in the late afternoon or evening in June. Carrots are a root crop, unlike tomatoes or peppers. The part you are trying to grow is buried in direct contact with the soil at all times. When you water in the evening, that moisture saturates the soil profile and stays there warm, still, and undisturbed through the entire night. That environment is not neutral. That environment is a biological incubator. Fungal pathogens, particularly the ones responsible for cavity spot and black rot, thrive in exactly these conditions. Warm nighttime temperatures above 60 degrees Fahrenheit combined with prolonged soil moisture create a window of several hours where these organisms reproduce rapidly around the very root you are trying to protect. You will not see the damage the next morning. You will not see it the week after. The foliage will look completely normal. But underground, microbial activity is quietly compromising the cellular integrity of your carrot roots, creating the dark lesions and internal cavities you'll discover only at harvest. You created that problem 3 weeks ago, every single time you watered at 6 in the evening. The correction is straightforward, but you have to commit to it consistently throughout June. Water in the morning, ideally between 6 and 9 a.m. This allows the surface moisture to evaporate through the warmth of the day, while still delivering adequate hydration to the root zone. The deeper soil retains moisture longer than the surface, so your carrots are not drying out. But you eliminate that dangerous overnight saturation window entirely. Morning watering also reduces the likelihood of foliar fungal issues in your carrot tops, which can stress the plant and redirect energy away from root development. One timing shift, weeks earlier in the day. That is all it takes to close the biological window you have been accidentally leaving open every evening. Every experienced gardener will tell you to mulch your carrot bed in June. And they are right. Mulching in June is not optional if you want to regulate soil temperature and retain moisture to the heat that is coming. But the way most gardeners apply that mulch is creating a silent problem that will not reveal itself until it is too late to correct. The mistake is not the mulch itself. The mistake is the depth and placement of it. In June, carrot shoulders, the upper portion of the root near the soil surface, are beginning to develop and expand. This is the zone where the carrot is most actively growing outward. And when gardeners lay down a thick, dense layer of mulch directly over the planting area, they are doing something they do not intend to do at all. They are compressing the soil surface and altering the gas exchange in the upper root zone. Carrots require oxygen in the soil column to develop properly. This is not a minor preference. It is a fundamental requirement of the root's cellular growth process. The carrot root tip elongates through a process that demands consistent aerobic conditions in the surrounding soil. When you pack heavy mulch, particularly uncomposted with chips, thick straw, or matted grass clippings, directly over a June carrot bed, you create an anaerobic layer at the exact depth where root shoulders are expanding. Soil pores get blocked. Moisture becomes trapped in a different way than with evening watering. Not liquid saturation, but gaseous stagnation. The biological system collapses silently. The carrot continues to push downward and outward, but it is doing so in an oxygen-depleted environment that stunts cell expansion and promotes the kind of microbial activity that causes internal browning and structural forking. Your foliage looks stressed above ground, and you cannot figure out why. The answer is 3 inches below the surface, where your well-intentioned mulch has been quietly suffocating your roots. Mulch your carrot bed, but do it with precision. Use light, loose materials, fine straw, shredded leaves, or pine needle mulch, at a depth of no more than 1 to 2 inches over the carrot zone itself. Keep the mulch layer thin enough that rainwater and air can still penetrate freely. Leave a slight gap around any visible carrot shoulders that have begun to push above the soil line. These exposed shoulders are actively breathing, and covering them tightly creates exactly the conditions you are trying to prevent. Mulch the pathways between rows as densely as you like. That suppresses weeds and retains moisture without affecting the root zone directly. The goal is temperature regulation, not sealing. Keep the layer loose, keep it light, and your roots will breathe. Before we move into mistake number 3, I need you to pause for just a second, because this next one is a mistake that kills plants. Not damages them, not stunts them, kills them completely and without warning. And it happens to gardeners who think they're doing everything right. If you have ever had carrot seedlings or young plants just collapse in June for no apparent reason, this is a chapter that explains exactly why. Drop a comment right now. Click on the subscribe button and tell me where in the world you are watching this from. I will be reading every single one. In March and April, you fertilized for green growth. You gave your carrot bed nitrogen, either through a balanced granular fertilizer or compost, and it worked exactly as it was supposed to. The seedlings pushed up healthy, vigorous, dark green tops. The nitrogen did its job. So in June, you do the same thing. Same fertilizer, same rate, same schedule, because it worked before, and it seems like consistent feeding is a sign of a responsible gardener. But here's the problem. The plant you are feeding in June is not the same plant it was in April. By June, your carrot plant has completed its vegetative establishment phase. The root system is in the ground. The foliage is developed. The biological priority of the plant has shifted completely. From this point forward, the carrot is focused almost entirely on one thing: root expansion and sugar accumulation. This is the phase that determines flavor, density, and size, the 3 qualities that actually matter at harvest. And nitrogen, the nutrient you use to drive leafy top growth, is now working directly against that process. When you feed high nitrogen to a carrot in June, you signal the plant to continue prioritizing above-ground vegetative growth. The tops become lush, dark, almost visually impressive. And the root slows down. It forks, it branches, it divides its energy trying to reconcile 2 competing biological directives. The result is a hairy, multi-pronged, undersweetened carrot that looks nothing like what the seed packet promised. More critically, excess nitrogen in June raises the cellular salt concentration around the root zone. In warm soil, this creates osmotic stress. Water cannot move into the root efficiently. The plant shows wilting even when the soil is moist. In severe cases, particularly in June heat spikes, this osmotic stress becomes acute. Young or transplanted carrot plants can collapse within days. This is not a gradual disappointment. This is sudden, visible, and devastating. In June, switch to a low nitrogen, high phosphorus, and potassium feed, often labeled as a root or bloom fertilizer. Something in the range of 5, 10 works well. The reduced nitrogen stops pushing top growth, while phosphorus supports root cell development, and potassium drives the sugar accumulation that gives well-grown carrots their characteristic sweetness. Apply at half the recommended rate. Carrots do not need heavy feeding. They need the right signals at the right time. What worked in April will actively sabotage you in June. Recognize that the season has shifted and shift with it. Nothing is more demoralizing than watching a carrot bed that looked perfectly fine and may suddenly look crowded, yellowed, and stunted going into late June. The tops are pale. Some are leaning. The rows feel dense and chaotic in a way that makes you uncomfortable. But you are reluctant to pull anything out because every green shoot represents a potential carrot, and removing it feels like throwing away food before it exists. So you leave the bed crowded. You hope they will sort themselves out. Or you thin a few, nervously, without committing to the full reduction the bed actually needs. Both responses are wrong, and both will cost you your harvest. Gardeners who thin too little are making a competition error. Carrots growing within 1 inch of each other in June are engaged in direct, unresolvable competition for soil moisture, nutrients, and, most critically, physical space for root expansion. The roots physically deform trying to grow around each other. You end up with a full bed of half carrots. But gardeners who panic thin in late June, pulling large handfuls at once after neglecting it for weeks, are making a different mistake. Aggressive late thinning in warm weather disturbs the root zone of every remaining carrot. The soil disruption in June heat stresses the plants at exactly the moment they should be focusing all energy downward. Both extremes produce the same result: a compromised harvest from a bed that had genuine potential. The correct approach is staged thinning with a June-specific timeline. By the first week of June, your carrot should be thinned to 2 inches apart, removing the weakest seedlings, cutting rather than pulling where possible to avoid disturbing neighboring roots. By the third week of June, thin again to your final spacing, 3 to 4 inches for standard varieties, 5 to 6 for larger heritage types like Chardonnay or Danvers. Do this in the early morning or evening. Water immediately after to resettle the soil, and apply your light mulch layer within 24 hours to protect the disturbed root zone. 2 rounds of thinning. Scissors rather than pulling. Immediate watering after each session. That sequence transforms a chaotic June bed into a productive one. Every beginner gardening article ever written tells you the same thing. Carrots need full sun, 6 to 8 hours minimum, to develop properly. And in March, in April, in May, that advice is completely accurate. The light is soft. The temperatures are moderate. Full sun in spring is exactly what it sounds like. Consistent, productive energy that drives healthy root development. But here's the part that almost nobody in the carrot growing world talks about openly. That same full sun in June is a fundamentally different thing. By June, in most temperate growing zones, afternoon solar intensity has increased dramatically compared to spring. Soil surface temperatures in unshaded beds can reach 120 degrees Fahrenheit or higher in the top 2 inches during peak afternoon hours. Carrot roots are developing in the top 6 to 8 inches of soil. The upper portion of that zone, the shoulder region, is directly exposed to this heat, and carrot root development is temperature sensitive in a very specific way. Soil temperatures above 75 degrees Fahrenheit at root depth begin to suppress the sugar accumulation process. Above 85 degrees, the process effectively stops. You are not just getting a smaller carrot. You are getting a bitter, pale, poorly textured carrot, one that developed its full size but never developed its flavor because the soil it was growing was too hot for the biochemical pathways that produce sweetness to function. The plant gives no visible warning. The tops look fine. The bed looks fine. The alarm is silent, and it rings all June long every afternoon while you are away from the garden. Here is what makes this particularly difficult. Gardeners who notice pale or bitter carrots early in June often assume the problem is variety or soil nutrition. They add more fertilizer, which, as we covered in Chapter 3, makes things worse. The tops darken in response to the nitrogen, which reads as improvement. The gardener feels reassured, but the root continues to develop in hot soil. The bitterness deepens. The texture becomes woody. And by the time harvest arrives, the disconnect between the healthy appearance of bed and the disappointing reality of the roots feels completely inexplicable. The fix is shade cloth, 30 to 40% density, applied over the carrot bed during peak afternoon hours between noon and 4 p.m. throughout June and July. Install it on simple hoops. Remove it in the morning. Let your carrots have the gentle morning light they need and block the punishing afternoon heat that is robbing them of their flavor. Every single one of these adjustments is something you can implement this weekend. Morning watering, light mulch, low nitrogen feed, staged thinning, afternoon shade cloth. None of it is complicated. None of it is expensive. And every single one of these changes is genuinely all that separate a great Cara harvest from a bed full of bitter, forked, hollow disappointments that you will never fully understand unless you watch this video first. Now you know. Go fix your June. This channel exists for one reason: to remind you that the answers to most of your growing questions are not in the store. They're in the ground, in the seed, in the knowledge that's been there all along. Subscribe and hit the bell so we can keep delivering it to you every single week. See you in the next one.